As Donald Trump weighs whether or not to order strikes on Iran, two key cabinet members typically involved in such deliberations reportedly find themselves outside the inner circle. The Director of National Intelligence and the Secretary of Defense. That's right, Fox News staples Tulsi Gabbard and Pete Hegseth. What they lack in terms of experience, they apparently can't make up with MAGA star power. Who would have thought? According to Politico, Gabbard fell out of Trump's good graces after posting a bizarre video earlier this month warning about the threat of global nuclear annihilation. At the time, the video seemed odd and out of place. But the reporting suggests it was actually Gabbard's attempts to steer Trump away from joining Israel and attacking Iran, which, according to Politico, only made Trump incensed. And what about former Weekend Fox host turned Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth? Well, look at this quote from an anonymous Republican senator who spoke to NBC News about who Trump does and doesn't listen to. Here it is, quote, "Pete is a show horse. He's very good on TV. He's very consistent in his message, and he always mentions the president. But Trump is no fool. He knows Pete." Oof. Another U.S. official put it like this in the Washington Post. "Nobody is talking to Hegseth. There is no interface operationally between Hegseth and the White House at all." Again, that is the Secretary of Defense they are talking about, at a time when we could get involved in a new military conflict at literally any moment. Warren Strobel covers U.S. intelligence for the Washington Post. He's one of the reporters who broke that story in the Post, and he joins me now. Warren, it's great to see you. I have to say, I talked to a bunch of my former colleagues today, too, just to say, isn't this weird? This is weird, right? After reading your reporting, it is strange to have these two positions out of the loop during a crisis like this, where they're discussing war and peace. And both are strange, but what particularly sticks out to me, given this is a consideration of bombing Iran, is the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, being left out. Why, according to your reporting, has he been left out?
I think because he and Tulsi Gabbard don't bring a lot to the table, and Trump, for all his flaws, is not a fool. And, as one of my colleagues at the Post put it very well, these two people we're talking about are good at culture wars. They're not the right people for wars. And we're in a situation now where there could be a war. And he's listening to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the commander of U.S. Central Command, and Ratcliffe, the head of the CIA, who is actually his main intelligence briefer at this point.
Yeah, you mentioned in your piece that Joint Chiefs of Staff General Dan Kane is in the loop. You also mentioned, as you just said, that John Ratcliffe remains in the loop, the CIA director. He's included. Is that because Trump sees him as more astute on intelligence, or are there other reasons for that?
I think it's because Ratcliffe is seen as more low-key. He's not a showboat. And this is a time where you really don't need showboats. I should say one thing, though. We're talking about all the advisors. I mean, as you know, Jen, Trump's #1 advisor is Donald J. Trump. And he's going to do he thinks he's called himself a stable genius, smarter than his generals. He trusts his gut. And so while it's important who he's listening to, I memean, he's going to make the final decision himself based on a bunch of factors, including some of the political factors you talked about earlier.
You mentioned in your story, and there's been a range of reporting that the Secretary of Defense is really not in operational contact, it seems, with the White House, which is very strange. I'm just going to just echo, is very strange. What is he doing? How are they in touch? What more did you learn through your reporting on this?
Yeah, and I should say a lot of this reporting came from my good colleague, Alex Horton, who covers the Pentagon. We did the story together. We don't want your viewers or our readers to think that Hegseth and Gabbard aren't in the room. They've been in the Situation Room. They've been in many of the meetings, but they're not bringing a lot to the table. And as far as we can tell, the White House is dealing directly with the military commanders in the region, like the General Kurilla, the head of CENTCOM, and General Kane. Those are where the discussions are having, and they're going around or over or under Pete Hegseth. I think Hegseth lost a lot of jam at the White House with the whole Signalgate controversy. And as you may remember, there was a series of controversies and chaos with his personnel, his top personnel in his first months at the Pentagon. So he's not seen as somebody who's, solid player, really.
Who could have predicted that? Warren Strobel, thank you so much for your reporting. Thanks for being here with me tonight.
Thanks for having me.